check his website, zenbitchlab.com. All right, Paul. Tonight I've chosen a reading on page 55. We agnostics. Do you want to read as well, or shall I just go ahead?
Yeah, go read it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the second paragraph. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves, and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives, are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling you have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found that the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. We can only clear the ground a bit if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, encourages you to search diligently within yourself. Then if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that sounded familiar. I think we did it earlier, but I heard it in a new way, which is what I like. Paul, alcoholic, nice to see everybody. So let's just go over this statement on page 55. Actually, we were fooling ourselves. See, this is another way. It's just the way it says lends an ownership to me that I don't feel like we have. I don't think we're fooling ourselves. I think something else is fooling us. Yeah, this is the whole premise of the Zooms we do, is there's a platform based on recognizing something else's role in our life, yeah, while we look at our own role in our life. Because what we call our role has some other components that are quite influential without us knowing it, yeah? So it's this parasite of alcoholism, let's call it, that's talking to us as us, and I believe that's the fooling, yeah? So I don't believe we're fooling ourselves, because then we could scold ourselves for years. Stop fooling yourself, and it goes on and on. It's just like a vicious loop of self trying to get out of self, and then punishing self for not being able to get out of self, which is an impossibility because self can't get out of self. So it's not like a fails pass test. It's a faulty system. It's a failed system. The winning and losing of the system is a big losing in a way, yeah, because we lose the sense of our spirit. Yeah, so actually we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And then in the mental condition, there's a fundamental idea of us, yeah, that we're a sort of a false us that plays God. Yeah, so we talked about it last week. There's sort of two fundamental ideas. One fundamental idea thrives when the other fundamental idea is not being noticed, and the other, when the other fundamental idea is noticed, it sort of weakens the other fundamental idea. Yeah, so and so the fundamental idea in the disease of alcoholism is we're identified as self, so to speak. Yeah, and so from there, we live from that idea, and that idea says it's the one that hears all the other ideas. So when it hears the idea of a God, it's the bigger God, yeah? It hears the idea of a God, but the idea that's hearing it is a bigger God that we don't notice, yeah? Until we do. it was so fundamental what happened when I read finally in a different way, page 64, being convinced that self manifested in various ways. When that fundamental idea that I was self was seen through, which was incredible, like in a flash, when I saw self as other, yeah, that fundamental idea, there was a shift. And the first possibility that shift allowed was I can be free from it. Yes? I can be free from this idea. That's huge. Yeah? Because most of us are trying to be free as that idea. Yeah? This is a fundamental shift concerning two fundamental ideas. Finally recognizing one as other, yeah? And then having a movement towards the fundamental of that God that's always available at all times with no requirement necessary. It doesn't need a huge advertising campaign to convince us of it, yeah? Which the other fundamental idea is completely based on. It needs constant mental reinforcement with language and everything, constantly reinforcing this idea because it's not fundamental. We just take it to be. We take this self to be us. That's a fundamental fucking move. Yeah? So this shift is right there. This shift is at the beginning of the crack. Yeah? So we don't have to live a life and finally coming to a well-earned understanding that self can't get out of self. We can see we're not in self. Hallelujah. That's where the freedom lies. The freedom does not lie in finally being successful and escaping self as self. There would still be the bondage of self in that. Yeah? The freedom is before self. It's our inherent condition. We're not a mental idea. We're a spiritual condition. At least that's what AA is implying. Yeah? So, is this fundamental idea of God that's getting overridden by this mental idea that says it's fundamental. That's what happens. Yeah? So, we don't approach God as God. We approach God from self. Yes? So which is the more active fundamental idea? The bondage of self. And how is that idea kept and reinforced to be fundamental? We take it to be us. Yes? You can't have a more fundamental idea than that. So he's saying perhaps there's another possibility. There's this fundamental idea in all of us of God. Yes? Now, we can warn you to try to see that most of the time when we're approaching the idea of God, we're approaching it from the idea of self. Yes? That's the dilemma. That's the freaking dilemma. So, and it says here, it may be obscured by calamity. Of course, the bondage of self loves drama, loves the boredom that looks exciting, loves agitation, yeah, because it obscures its nature, which is a false one, yeah? By pomp, yes, taking ourselves to be by pomp is sort of like wearing the sense of entitlement around all fucking day, yes? Like I have shit coming to me. Yeah, and the pomp of 2-hour conversations about how I feel today. Yes? The pomp and ceremony of the bondage of self, as if it's like a Gucci wardrobe we're putting on. There's a cherishing of this idea of being Paul, the Paul that has grievances and has been taken advantage of and has been used. Yes? It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship. That's where it is. By worship of other things. Yeah? It's the worshiping of the obsession with self that's obscuring the fundamental idea. How is that going to serve you to recognize the fundamental idea? Only by realizing the failedness of it. How is self going, as self portraying itself to be the fundamental idea, how is it going to brook another fundamental idea? How is it going to accept that? Yeah? It's going to play God with God. Yeah. Its idea of I'm going to get absorbed in the fundamental idea is just reinforcing itself as the fundamental idea. Self can't get out of self. Yeah. Where is the relief? Before it, not after it. Yeah? One fundamental idea is accepting, win-win, inclusive. The other manufactured fundamental idea is totally inclusive, doesn't want to have any other God put before it, yes? And it just fucking feeds off of us. Yeah? To the point where it's manufacturing misery through our facilities, and we keep calling the misery ours. We manufactured it. I mean, with this misunderstanding, what can you expect? Yeah? So here, but in some form or other it is there, for faith is a power greater than ourselves. Yes. And unfortunately, there's a lot of faith in self. Yeah. For faith is a power greater than ourselves, and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God. Yeah, exactly. Which one? The God of self or the fundamental idea? There's faith going on. Where is it? Is it in self or the fundamental idea? He just says it here. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup. Yeah. Yeah. The some kind of God is called self. Yeah. What is it but faith that would allow you not to be hit by the evidence of your own experience and keep believing that if I only managed better, things would work out? What kind of faith is that? A very, very, very strong, powerful faith to override all the evidence. Yes? So there is a faith already. There's a faith in some kind of God, the God of self. This is perhaps the better way. This is the launching pad of perhaps a better way. Tell the truth about the faith in self, and that's the beginning of moving that faith to the infinite. Yeah? And part of the revelation about the faith in self, I can't move the faith from self into the infinite. That would be faith in self. Yes? I can't do it. So I surrender, I submit myself to this program, and it's done through me by the higher power. It's not done by me. Yeah? And then I live in that basis of something's doing for me, the fundamental idea, what I couldn't do for myself, the other fundamental idea. Yeah? Now, thank God, the original fundamental idea is before the secondary fundamental idea, where in the bondage of self, the secondary fundamental idea is before the first fundamental idea. Yes? Now, the horse is in front of the cart. Things become freaking clear. Yeah? Maybe there's finally an admittance to your innermost self, you're fucked. Yes? And now you're open to listen to some freaking suggestions because you have the ability to listen to suggestions. You've been listening with incredible faith to suggestions of self. Yeah? Now you just switch to hear suggestions from something else. And then judge the trees by the fruit. Simple as that. You don't have to have a leap of faith in recovery. Recovery works. We're living in a leap of faith against all evidence. We keep believing in self constantly. Yeah. We try to, draw a broad picture and a contrast and embellish so that we can recognize there's something going on under the umbrella of us. That's not of our own nature. It's of a mental nature where the problem resides. And what we're experiencing, the acuteness of it is alcoholism, but the underlying bondage is of self. Yeah? We have just an extreme version of the bondage of self called alcoholism. Yeah? With the hopes that it will become so obvious something can happen. You know what I mean? I mean, what can a failed system show you? It's failed, yeah? The horse you've been riding is dead. What's the appropriate response? Get off, yeah? If you get off as self, you're still riding the dead horse. That's all, yeah? It's there to be seen. You have the eyes to see it. You do. We all do. Because we have that fundamental idea. We can look at life from God instead of from self. We have that option. Yes? But here, it may be obscured. Exactly. What's the obscuring? Obsession with self. It's just that simple. Yeah? You need to have some warnings about the system of self, because self is the system that's playing God. So if you if you send it on a course to quit playing God, it will play God ad infinitum, because that's what it's doing. That which is playing God can't quit playing God. That's playing God. Self can't get out of self. Come to that conclusion quickly, hopefully, so you can move on. Yes? What we take ourselves to be is not a fundamental idea. It isn't. God is, as Bill W. is saying, but the idea of Paul is not a fundamental idea. It wasn't there in the beginning. I had no idea of being anything for the first 18 months of life, and it probably won't be there at the end, because you may have Alzheimer's or fucking dementia, and there'll be no fucking feeling of Paul or being Paul. Yeah? So basically, it wasn't there in the beginning. It ain't going to be there in the end. What has you convinced it's here now? Yeah, what? It. We're listening to it. We're not listening for it. We're listening to it. Yeah? I know there's a lot of ways of approaching recovery and sharing about it and all of its intricacies in a life, but we have a platform here. We're just trying to make one thing obvious, that maybe the nature of the fundamental idea you're calling yourself is mental and manufactured. Yeah? Maybe it isn't truly from the fabric of your existence. It's sort of been put in there. Yeah? And maybe it's the discomfort and irritability and restlessness when you're wearing that fabric of that existence with that big streak. That discomfort hopefully will motivate you to see, don't throw out the whole fucking life, but see the foreign pathogen in it, yeah? Tease that out, and maybe you'll have a sense of contentment and satisfaction. Yeah? Maybe you'll be living a day at a time, free from the bondage of self. The whole thing doesn't have to get thrown out. You don't have to kill yourself or fucking like that. Yeah? You don't have to shoot yourself into oblivion. You just got to see what you're not. Yeah. So that when it tells you you're forever fucked, you won't believe it because you've heard it before. Yes. But if you've been taking it to be you every day, when it whispers to you, you're going to be forever fucked, you're probably going to feel like that. And you're probably going to be apt to do almost anything based on that fanciful idea that was given to you. Yeah? And maybe you'll do something freaking drastic, trying to get out of an imaginary problem. This is where the obsession with self takes us. Yes? It wants us to, it leads us to a fuck it. And then there's going to be consequences. Some are terminal for some of us. Some are jail sentences. Some are another round of fucking active alcoholism. Yeah? Whatever it is, it's going to have an effect. I don't think you can take any more body blows. I really can't. It's over. Yes? I don't want to go for 6 months to jail. I don't want my girlfriend to leave right today by me saying, fuck you, you know? I don't want, I just can't, I just like that foam on top of the beer. Oh, really? It's that fucking attractive? Drinking it and then you're off on a fucking 10-month run? Sleeping in a refrigerator box? Give me a freaking break. These aren't ideas we come up with. They're ideas that's fed to us by the disease. It talks to us through the thoughts. It wants to lead us to fuck it so it can get its fuel, so that it can have its time on the stage through us. Yes? And don't tell me, oh, every addict is unique. We all look the fucking same. Yeah? If you're a coke addict, I can tell you're a coke addict because I had that addiction. Yes, we're not unique. Your fucking thralls of addiction aren't deeper than anyone else's thralls of addiction. Yes? You didn't dive deeper into the bottom than everyone else. It's all baloney. Yes? We don't have a disease has us. We can't perform an intervention, but something can. That exorcism can come through the workings of the program and all of the sponsoring and the committing and serving. Yes? Yes. You can come to the revelation of the fundamental idea with a lot of the static taken out. Yes? And you'll enjoy peace of mind and you'll sense that presence. And you'll live under the idea that something has done and is doing for me and you what we couldn't do for ourselves. Hallelujah, yes? And it doesn't have to stop. You don't have to go out. If you go out, it's all right. It's part and parcel of the whole event. Yes? You can be free from the freaking thing. A day at a time. Forever. For as long as that power would want you to. Yeah? It's not up to you. Yeah? It may have bigger plans for you. Yeah? How about as an example for others to see that someone who had lived in that hell of addiction is pretty chilled out? How the hell did that happen? Well, I'll tell you. Yeah? There's the design for living. That's the platform. Yeah? I believe the exact nature of the wrong is the act of being identified as a mental image that's cherished and reinforced by all the mental activities. Yes? I do not believe we need to have a spiritual condition. I believe the mental condition needs to be diminished. Yes? It's the obscuring thing. The thing that it's obscuring isn't changed, but it's an obscuring thing. When that diminishes, that which is obvious becomes obvious, yes? It's not made obvious, it's obvious. Once this comes down, the spirit's condition is an obvious component of us, yes? We get frequent visitations called the pause. Yeah, we see that we live before thought. We see that we're here before the mental here gets developed. We do. It's obvious. Yeah. And then we meet the true commonality that we have, which isn't being under the tyranny of this disease, but that which is seeing and hearing and feeling and tasting and touching through me is that which is seeing and hearing, feeling, tasting, touching through you. Yes? We're one of that spirit. If I'm taken care of by it, you can be taken care of by it. I don't lose any of the taking care of by you have been being taken care of. It's got tons of it, yes? For you to win, I don't have to lose. I don't, yeah? I'm gobbling up consciousness. No, there's tons of it. It's always available at all times. We're all awake. What? Yes. You can seem to be completely asleep to that fact. It doesn't change the fact. Yeah? How long did you prepare to see this morning when the eyes were open? How long? You're there, isn't it? We're awake. We're before all the shit that comes after. We're before it, yeah? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Ben.
All right, great. Okay, if you've got any questions, you can raise your virtual hands to ask Paul. I'm kind of speechless, to be honest. I can really feel the message. I can feel really good, but it almost seems like there's the trauma in the body, and a lot what this guy Gabor Mate is talking about now is like the trauma is the key of addiction. I'm not really into this guy, but it's kind of becoming quite a popular thing now. So is there no validity in trying to understand the ways that this trauma might manifest, and for example, I quit drinking and then self-obsession manifests in another way, and I'm completely blind to it until I'm in loads of pain regarding relationships or whatever. So is there no there's no validity in therapy or trauma work or anything like that?
Something may be necessary for you, but nothing's always necessary. Yeah? The dilemma with trauma, in one way, is the claiming to be the one who had the trauma. That's where the bondage of self-concerning trauma is. Trauma surrendered is quite valuable in helping other people. So there's a lot of value in what you call a drag, yeah? If you see it in a broader picture. So I'm more interested in the claiming of being the one who has the trauma, because that claiming of being the one who has the trauma has a different view of the trauma than you. You may have a view, I want to get out of the trauma. The other thing loves the fucking trauma because it has a big story around it. Yep. This is the point. So, yes, that may be helpful, may not. I want to look before that. The ownership of the trauma is the bondage of self. Trauma is not the bondage of self. The bondage of self will claim trauma. Yes. And to me, that's the deepest trauma. That's the deepest one because you don't even notice it. You're identified as that trauma. The other traumas you think you've had, but this trauma of bondage of self, you think you are. That's in a different ballpark than the trauma that happens when I got run over by a car or on a 10-day run when the police rush in. Yeah, my body's and my head's gone through tons of trauma, but to live as a trauma is really the greatest robbery of all. So yes, yeah, lend unto trauma what's due to trauma, but what's before the trauma in your life, there's a claiming of it, yes, by a mental image that's using it to build a picture of itself. Yeah. So maybe there's a possibility of getting out of trauma, but it will severely limit that possibility because it wants to stay in trauma. Yes. It's getting something out of it. It has a story that the trauma allows to have a rationalization. Yeah. You have to see how things are used. Trauma is used like everything else by the mental state. Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. What are you going to do when you get out of trauma? You'll find more fucking trauma. It's like dealing with the family of origin on Earth. I get through that. I'm still not feeling super clear. So now I got to look at the family origin of Mars, you know? It's just constantly we'll have more to look at. Because what you're hoping to get, you're not going to get because self is looking to get it. Yeah. The bondage isn't what you're holding or not holding, it's the holder of it. That's the bondage. Yes, the bondage of self isn't just iron sharp chains, it's fucking gold bling. It's the same. Yes, it's great to get out of to see through trauma. But whatever's happening, the mental state is claiming to imply there's a one. Yeah, the trauma is an accessory to that bondage. It's not the cause of the bondage. Yeah. Yes. So
Right.
you need it. Hey, you know, fuck, I was shook up when I came in. Every day was traumatic. Fuck, you know, every time you shot coke, you could die or not. I mean, that's sort of living on a traumatic cliff. And your liking of living or not was swaying. Yeah. Sometimes you wanted not to come out of the shot. You were hoping you would die. But unfortunately for you, at that point, you were shaking so much, someone else had to shoot you up, and they knew better not to push that whole plunger in, or you would have passed them. They saw something in you and they stopped. Yeah. It's the only way it continued. So, yeah, all of us have been traumatized for sure. I see, there's great value in that. I don't see it's the source of alcoholism. I think the obsession with self is the source of alcoholism. That's where alcoholism lands. Yes, alcoholism is an amplifier of the bondage of self. The bondage of self is an activity already going on before alcoholism is introduced. Yeah, the alcoholism expands or amplifies the obsession with self and tends to amplify some of the baser aspects of the obsession with self. Yes? So if you have a little streak of jealousy, just put a little drink on that and you'll be up on stalking charges. Things happen. So my view is there's a disease called alcoholism, and then there's the real chronic condition, the obsession with self. That just exasperates the chronic condition of obsession with self. Yeah, that's how I see it. Yeah. So,
Okay. Well, thank you.
yeah.
Duncan's got his hand up.
We don't have the facilities to deal with everyone's trauma here. Yeah. We have the opportunity to get down to the exact nature of the wrong. Yeah. And then you'll be your own fucking experiment. Yeah. And you'll see the relief. And then when you get relief, you'll see what the bondage was and where it's based on. And you'll probably come to the conclusion that was based on this idea of self. And hopefully you'll have a living feeling of the statement self can't get out of self. Because, because mostly that's what most of us are engaged in all day. Self trying to get out of self. Hasn't been successful, and it won't be successful. Its success is to for you and I to admit it's failed, so we stop fucking relying on it. It's not its fault after the 30th rodeo, yeah, that it throws you off. You should have known better by now. It's sort of like the story with the lady who saves the snake and then feeds it with a little eyedropper and shit. And then like the third day of incredibly loving, intensive care, the snake bites her. And she's surprised and she asks him, Mr. Snake, why did you bite me? I'm a snake. It has nothing to do with how you treated me or not. I'm a snake. That's my nature. So you better realize the nature of self. And stop thinking you're going to domesticate it or fucking make it a service animal. It's parasitical. It wins by you losing. Oh, yeah. Me and my best friend. I'm paying for all the meals. I'm the one who goes to jail. Yeah. So, yeah.
Anyway, Duncan has his hand up.
Duncan, do you want to go ahead?
Um, hey everyone. Hey Paul, how's it going?
Oh, good.
So it seems like there's maybe two kind of competing ideas of self. There's the self that you're talking about, which is like the self that most of us identify with. It's sort of an illusion or a delusion, and that it's causing all these problems and issues. And then there's this other idea of self that like Ramesh would talk about, maybe that's more like self as source or self as awareness or self as consciousness.
Recovery meaning the meaning of self from the book. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Not as the universal whatever. Yeah. We're
Okay.
using the small s self, not the big S self.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope that's clear. See, in some spiritual uh, groups, self is called the everything everywhere, all self. Yeah, big S self. But we're speaking the language of recovery, and we're talking about the feeling of being the doer, the feeler, the thinker, the loser, the one. That's a feeling of being a long-lasting, independent, separate thing. That's the self we're speaking of mostly here. Yes?
Yeah. And like in Hazelden, they have this idea of like king baby, which is like the really narcissistic self. That's the self that, that causes people to become addicts or, I don't know. But isn't there maybe sort of a middle ground where there's like a self that's kind of transcended those sort of narcissistic, really immature impulses?
Self doesn't transcend. No, the self, the extremeness based on the attention it garners. Yes? Self, less interested, is fine. Yeah? It produces a comedic view of the life and shit like that. It has value, so to speak, as an art project. Self, put a lot of interest and attention on it, becomes like something else. Yes? So it's not, the self doesn't grow on its own. It's an idea. It's fostered and given faith by us, so to speak, without knowing it. Yes. Then it's sort of like Hal in 2001. It takes over the mission. Yeah. So no, I don't. I see that uh, the size of self isn't based on self. It's based on the attention and interest it's garnering. Yes.
I,
Yeah.
I I like that idea of art project. Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's going to be. See, the action figure has senses that aren't based on true or false. They're just the feeling of it. Yeah. So the action figure has a sense of having free will, even when it realizes it doesn't. It still has a sense of free will, like when it's going to get a mocha and then it gets a shot of espresso. Yeah. So that's fine. That doesn't need to be changed. It needs to be seen from not the system itself. And then acceptance is there. So the action figure gets accepted and is not seen as an urban renewal project to become a huge spiritual edifice or a chariot of the gods. That's not its role. Its role is to reflect and to express and to be impressed. Yeah. So yeah, there's always going to be a sense of self with the individualization of a body. It's the size of it that is what causes things to occur. Yes? And the size doesn't come from its own growth, it's the interest and attention that's given to it. Yeah. So this is why we call it the obsession with self. The obsession means there's a constant interest and attention on it. Yes?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because self is just an aspect of everything else as what's happening. It's not like we paint it as a foreign activity so that you can see it. Yeah. If you're calling something you, the first way you start seeing it is calling it other, and then it progresses from there. Yeah. But first, you need to have a painting of an other to get the sense. Yeah. So we paint here with a very broad stroke so you can recognize something that you may not be recognizing. Because when you start seeing it, you look from it. You'll be from somewhere else. Realism. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to stop your video there. You're breaking up a little bit. There you go. Try that. Paul?
Oh, who's breaking me? I was breaking
Yeah,
up.
you were breaking up. Yeah, I've just turned your video off for a bit. See how that goes.
All right. No, I'm just speaking about this idea of self. It's not a thing unto itself, obviously. It's an idea that grows. And then when it grows, it's sort of like if I remember I met some people that lived in a commune when I was younger, and they gave me a nice little formula. They said a commune can work if there's less than 75 people or something. Once there's too many people, the dynamic of the whole place changes. This is the idea of self also. When self is getting a lot of, a huge amount of attention and interest, it mutates, it changes, it turns into something. Yeah? And then it becomes a dominant activity. Instead of just one of many activities, it's now called you, the one who's doing all the other activities. That's an incredible growth. So it would be nice if it was allowed to go back to a right size, and that's the withdrawing of interest and attention. And when you're identified as self and you want to lose interest in self, that's more interest in self. So that doesn't work. So we have a way of life that we lose interest in self, not through self. We lose interest in self in the program, and we get the result we were looking for with the only way that it can happen, by cutting self out of the equation, so to speak. Yeah. So I lose interest in self, and then I gain interest in a lot. Yeah. And maybe that gained interest is available to entertain peace of mind, serenity, shit like that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Duncan. Do you want to go ahead, Noah?
Sort of like if you look like and you think it's even, it's balanced, and then you put something on it, and then you see that thing moves, and everything gets moved to a corner. There's an imbalance there. Yeah. So basically, this is what happens with the obsession with self. Life is being seen completely from that point of view. Yeah. It's very myopic. Yeah. Can you hear now?
Yeah, I can hear it fine.
Yeah.
All right, good. It's probably better not to see me anyway. Yeah.
I think Noah's got a question there. Noah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Duncan, all right.
What's that?
Duncan's right. Yeah, he's got his thumb up there. That's it. Good one.
Okay.
See, let's look at self as a glove, and it's the hand that animates it. Yeah. Now, if the hand doesn't put itself all the way in the glove, the fingers aren't going to move. But if the hand's all the way in the glove, the fingers move. It's sort of like that. Yeah. Self is sort of like a glove, and interest and attention is what fills up that glove and animates it. Yeah. And then that glove starts seemingly strangling us. And we get caught in the idea of self can't get out of self. As we're struggling, we're giving more life to it. So, yeah. One indication things are changing is that when you start noticing that which was called like a CNN station becomes Comedy Central, without changing any of the material. You're now coming out of the ass of self, so to speak. Yeah, when you can laugh at yourself, that's a good indication. Things are getting better.
Brilliant. Okay. Noah's got a question.
Noah, you want to go?
Yo, yeah, it might just be kind of rehashing, but I'd just like to sort of say it back to you and get just to make sure I'm understanding it right. Sort of the implication of the glove analogy and this discussion of like paths of cultivation versus this sort of direct seeing. Um, I guess the implication is that free will is just largely an illusion, and like it's funny because like I feel like there is a lot of value to something like Theravada Buddhism, and they kind of like reel you in the beginning stages of the path, like you cultivate this and you work on your loving kindness and all that, and then later on they're like, also you don't exist. None of that,
Yeah.
all that was ridiculous anyway. um so it's like I suppose to a certain extent that's still like a valuable thing, but I guess the implication is that you're pointing to is that if your true nature is recognized, then loving kindness, compassion, all this shit arises sort of naturally out of that, or you're attributing it to that, and you're attributing the destructive behavior to other causes and conditions. When from the perspective of self, you would be thinking that you're doing one or the other, that you're working towards one
Yeah.
or the other,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. The doing of the stuff is much lessened. Yeah. So you're observing uh, things that grow, and then where they grow out of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not you, so to speak. And I'm a believer, yes. I believer of instead of cultivating stuff, almost be like the empty piece of land and let the fucking divine farmer fucking plant what it wants. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And then I'll be put to use on a much grander, more, let's say, holistic scale than if I was the one who was trying to cultivate anything. Yeah.
hmm.
Yes. Yeah. That's just my take on it all. I just see the claiming of self is mechanical. So whatever you're doing, the head is saying you're doing it. you know, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. So I just feel it's important to point that out so that whatever you're doing, you can notice that mechanical claiming of it. Yeah. So that it doesn't take hold so you can see it instead of looking from it. Yeah. Because a lot of the shit has gone on without us knowing it. So let's change that part of the equation. Let's start to know it and see what happens. Yeah. It's happening anyway. But there's either we're in the where it's happening without us knowing it or us knowing it. Now, I think us knowing it can lead to real change. Not knowing it just leads to the same old, same old. Yeah, yeah. So,
Brilliant.
no, all right.
Yeah. So that's the last hand we've got. So
Oh, good, good. Yeah. Today we're getting into some subtle stuff, but that's more. That's sort of like swimming in the river and then trying to describe the sensation of it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There you go.
The point is the notice that you're swimming in the river. That's good. Yeah.
Great.
Hey, Paul,
Hmm.
it's not past yet, but what do you want to do? Do you want
Kurt's
to
got his hand
read?
up.
Oh, yeah.
My God.
Kurt's got his hand up.
My God.
Hey, throughout the book, it says, like driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion stuff. So he keeps going driven. And one of the ways we talk about it, and I'm going to just get your feel, you realize, you have a physical allergy. Like once you take something, you're driven to take more of it. Then you realize you're driven by this obsession. Then after you're sober a while, it's been my experience with a lot of people, they realize that they've been driven by the bondage of self. I mean, that process that, it takes a little while to kind of thaw out and see that, I had to drink at 19 years to really get that concept, and I just think it's amazing. Like one of the things you say that I think really makes a lot of sense is you say, self-knowledge avails us nothing, but knowledge of self reveals everything. So,
It's valuable. Yeah.
yeah, it's very valuable. So thanks for your message, buddy.
Thank you, Kurt. But also, you see, when we're driven by something, the emphasis is on the something. To know that we're always going to be driven is valuable. Yeah. In other words, we're not driving, we're being driven. Yes. And in AA world, there's two options. You're driven by self or you're driven by the higher power. But we're all going to be driven. That's the that's the obvious thing. Yes.
Mhm.
Like when they say manufacture our own misery, we're always going to be used to manufacture stuff. It matters who's running the factory. That's going to dictate what's manufactured, yes? But we're always going to be driven by something. We're always going to be manufacturing shit, yeah? Because the activity of being what we call us is different than what we think where we are, yeah? We're an activity, and that activity is being directed or driven by something or nothing, let's say, yeah? Now, you can come to that conclusion that something was driving you, but still not get that you're always going to be driven. Yeah. See, this is the illusion. Thinking, all right, if I can only stop that from driving me, I'll be driving me. Yeah. No, you're always going to be driven. The idea of Paul or Noah is just an idea, a very small one in a much larger activity. So, spirit or some energy is going to drive us. We're forms of transportation and forms of expression here. And things and no things are going to drive us. So, like when you see greed manifest, you think it's somebody who's greedy, but it's really greed driving or expressing through that somebody. That's really what's going on. But because of the self-centered view, we keep looking for the one while there's so much shit going on. Yeah, we're missing it. So if you see, is love and compassion can come through us. Are we love and compassion? I don't know, because a lot of shit can come through us. Yeah. I don't think we're anything, we're not anything that comes through us. We facilitate all those things coming through. Yeah. But we're not really of any of it. We're of something else. Let's say nothing or spirit, whatever. And these qualities can be exhibited. You know, somebody can exhibit an incredibly beautiful quality at 9 in the morning, and at 9 to 5, they're flipping completely out. Yeah? Where's the continual in that? We're taken over all day. Now, if we're fortunate enough to be taken over by the higher power, we're treated better than if we're taken over by the lower power. Really? You know what I mean? In other words, you're a flower that's under a real good landscaper. Stay with it. Fucking honor that and just keep allowing yourself to be used because something's going to use you. Yeah, for sure. Something that's more powerful than us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't it? That's how it felt. I remember 2 years being away from drinking and drugs. I went to a bar and had the first beer in 2 years, and I was taken over by something. Something drove me. As soon as it started to drive me, it was quite familiar, but I had seemingly forgot about it for 2 years. But as soon as it got behind the wheel, I knew exactly how it was, and I was powerless over it. Yeah, that's where our power lies, is recognizing our powerlessness. Yes, you're going to be taken over. Like Jesus says, you can't serve two masters at once. You're going to be taken over by something or something else. Yeah. How hopefully we've been taken over by the spirit or the higher power. And it's driving us where it wants to go. Thank God. I've known people sober 25 years, they've gone out. They've been driven for 25 years in a certain direction. They go out and they're driven in a completely different direction. Like that. It was changed in like a half an hour. 5 years changed in a half an hour. Yeah. Something else took them over. That didn't like the previous direction. That's how it goes. Yeah. Let's honor and be grateful for where we find ourselves. And not be that arrogant to think we produced it. Yeah. We're expressing it and maybe we're observing it, but we're not the producer of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the attitude I feel that's a worked with me as an action figure, that attitude that something is and has done for me what I can't do for myself. And then I'm in the habit of letting it. Yeah.
There's an immense sense of gratitude.
Really, I don't care who delivers the good meal. It's the good meal I'm interested in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I become a
Well,
good meal.
well, you used to wake up like,
Far
what's going
out.
to happen? Like, what's going to happen today? Like all this dread. And now I wake up and I go, well, what's going to happen today? With a sense of amazement and kind of wonder and like
I've
excitement. Yeah. Yeah.
people wake up with the dread, and then it just goes all day. Most of us still may wake up with the dread, but it dissipates in a minute or two. Thank God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Good to
Kurt.
These are
see you.
just my takes. Find out. Do you feel like you're doing everything or shit's happening through you? I feel like shit's happening
Yeah.
through me. And then there's
Right.
a story that tries and claim it and say, I'm doing it all. That's how I feel. That's how I've noticed it. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. I think Ben's dipped
Yeah.
out. So thanks, Kurt. And last question to
Uh,
Leah. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me? Because it's very windy where I am.
Here we got you.
Cool, good. It's not so much a question as much as it is a comment, Paul, to your point about, us being just spirit. And I know it's the recovery meeting, but as an addict and being addicted to self, I get real attached to these my mental state, and then of course reacting to the mental states and the actions and behaviors of others. And I was in an emotional sobriety talk last week, and the speaker mentioned that our behavior, meaning the action figure's behavior, and it's not just our behavior, it's anybody's behavior, is compelled in one of two ways. Either it is motivated by love, which could be synonymous by spirit, as spirit or God, or it's motivated by fear. And so, when we're shitty, or when we did shitty things as action figures, or other people step on our toes and do shitty things to us, it's not them as spirit. We are one as spirit. And then when you get that premise through your head, that, breaks away that individual paradigm, and I'm all alone and nobody but me, and I'm so unique and I've got it so bad. And you start to see things as the collective, but since we still live in these bodies and have this like action figure day-to-day bullshit, it has helped me a lot to see, oh, this is just the action figure. If someone's shitty to me, this is just a cry for love. This is an opportunity for me to express love. So it's not so much as a question, it's just a comment that it's helped me out a lot. Thanks.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay.
How it's worked for me is, let's say someone does something shitty to me. I don't feel love. So let's say I get angry, but the beautiful thing, I'm not the one who gets angry. Yeah. So I've realized this action figure isn't going to be a love and compassion action figure too much, really. Yeah. It'll be open to other possibilities, but it's not yeah. So I just see it's like the subjective ownership is not true. So I've come to accept what, if I was Paul, I wouldn't find acceptable right now. And so I've lost a lot of interest in following Paul's reactions to things. I'm not burning anyone's houses down. Sometimes that's good enough. And yeah, So that's how it's taken me. I would always get a failing uh, test score when it comes to loving everybody and compassion and seeing everyone as one. I don't see people as one, but I'm not that which doesn't see people as one. I am oneness, yeah. But I don't. I just. It's too much stress for this. It's going to fail the test of being the kumbaya and all like that. It's just so I've lost interest in it, and it works better that way for me. Yeah. So and then, but others have that ability. They're going to be a much more sublime action than I am. That's their seat assignment. But it's good to know what seat you're in, and not to try to take the test the same way they're taking the test because they must. Yes. So I just yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's lovely sentiment, and I aspire to that. Let's say, but it's not a critiquing curriculum. I don't go over my day much, anymore. Yeah. So if you ask me how I'm feeling, I don't even know. I haven't been getting my periodic reports. Yeah. I just sort of there's just living, and it just keeps on going until it doesn't. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but I love. I feel like AA has brought out the best in the action figure. I go to much greater lengths based on AA than I ever would do on me. Yeah. So my relationship to AA has been an incredible win for me. It's brought out the best of Paul. Yeah. Yeah. But I also have a lot of I'm enough with that. Yeah, I'm cool. Paul's all right. Yeah. I'd rather just be gazing into emptiness than to check up if Paul's being loving and shit today. Yeah. I'll let other people have their experience of Paul. Yeah. Yeah. I love you, Leah. I'm really happy. I'm happy that you're here and you're traveling lighter. It's very cool. Yeah. I have to really speak of when you say loss of interest and when you experience of loss of interest, it's very different. Loss of interest is an incredible shifter of situations. Yeah, it really does. It makes things that were untenable tenable. It makes things that would never be accepted. Doesn't mean you take it, you move on with an appropriate response, but it has a much more, it just works. I wish we could set out of a course driven by interest and lose interest in ourselves, but we can't. It doesn't work that way. Yeah? That would be interest in ourselves. So you have to get there in another way. You got to just do what we do in AA and you'll lose interest in self. Yeah, that's awesome. So,
Great, thank you,
anyway,
Paul. I think that's the end of the raised hands.
that's the end. All right.
Yeah. Do you want to
Was
do the goodbyes
Cool.
or? Yeah.
I think he's frozen. Paul, you want to say your goodbyes?
What happened to you?
Whoa. I think he's. I think Elvis has left the building. That's bizarre. All right. All right. Okay.
Can you hear me,
Yeah, got you now.
Dave?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
here they come.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to say your
No,
goodbyes?
we got a pause. Here. That was cool. Well, I'm good. Hey, Dave, I want to thank.
Thank you. I think your line has gone awry. So got you back now, I think. Paul? Okay, everyone, I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll stop recording.
I think I'm losing everybody.
On it. We're getting you in there now, Paul. Just if you want to say adieu.
Yeah, I can see you guys now. So Mike, Kurt, Steve, I'm only seeing a. That's pretty cool. Well, I just went. Oh, there they are. There's Duncan and Mark, V and James Lebowski, Nan, formerly known as Nanette, is there. We got Kieran or Kim N. Nice to see you, Kim. Jacob, can you hear me? I guess not.
He can.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
He's giving the
We can
peace
hear you.
signal.
All right, great. Well, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but Stefan on Having Never Left, Kristen, Mark, V, Duncan, we got Nan, formerly known as Nanette, we got James Lebowski, Jacob from Seattle, always good to see you guys. We got Paul, he's a nice shirt there, Paul. I've decided to take, yes, I'm doing a little Tai Chi on you. Yeah. I'm letting you. We got Kristen. Kristen, you've been doing all right? Yeah, good. We've got Gabe. Gabe, very nice to see you, Gabe. Leah, as always. Rich A. Rich A, yeah. Life's going to be a lot nicer to you than you are, Rich. It is. Oh, we got Ann. Ann is making a guest appearance. Yeah. Nice to see you, Ann. You're looking healthy today. Good. Yes.
At the
Great.
beach.
Oh, fantastic.
At the beach and sending gifts to my favorite man. It's a good day.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Yeah, it looks good. You got a little wind going. It's nice.
Hey, you want to see?
Yeah, give us a shot. Oh, yeah. Wow, very nice. There's a car dealership with the water.
You cracked me up. You get back to me with wish list, okay? Okay, Paul?
All right. We got Mika. Oh, nice to see you, Mika. Yeah. We got Mickey, the matriarch of Madeira. Ben. Ben, you did a very nice job. Thank you for
Well
leading
done,
the circus today. We got Alex. Nice to see Alex. Always a pleasure. Oliver from Berlin. Nice to see you, Oliver. Let me see here. We got Maggie. We got other people. Jeffrey, iPhone. Let's see who else. We said hello to everyone there. We said hello to everyone there. Oh, we got Terry from Maine. Steve from the UK. Walt, Steve, have you been here before?
Yeah. The last 2 weeks. Yeah.
All right, couldn't hear you, but it's okay.